Hi. Before we begin, just so you know you're not alone on this journey, at papernapkinwisdom.com, we've got free tools designed to help leaders like you find clarity and momentum. No pressure, just support. You can grab them anytime. You can even grab them from social media. The link's in the bio.
Welcome to Paper Napkin Wisdom, where we share pearls of wisdom shared by some of the world's top entrepreneurs, leaders, and difference makers. Here's your host, Govind Jayaraman.
Hi, I'm Govind Jayaraman, and this is Paper Napkin Wisdom, episode 269. If you've ever found yourself working towards a finish line that keeps moving, today's conversation might just shift the way you think about time, success, and what you're really working for. Today, I'm joined by a returning guest, someone who's no stranger to challenging conventional wisdom. Derek Coburn is an entrepreneur, best-selling author, and community builder whose first book, Networking is Not Working, helped leaders rethink how we build authentic relationships. Now, he's back with another idea, one that might stop you in your tracks. In our conversation, we explore a subtle but powerful reframe that has the potential to completely alter the trajectory of your life, not in 20 years, but right now. What if the very thing you've been taught to pursue might be getting in the way of the life you actually want? What if fulfillment isn't a reward for later, but something you could architect today? Derek and I unpack what it means to live fully through our work, our relationships, and our choices, and how shifting one core belief could unlock the kind of freedom we rarely talk about. Stick around for this conversation. You'll hear practical wisdom, fresh perspective, and one bold sentence that might just become the new lens through which you see your life. And remember, don't just listen, write it down, reflect, then act. This is Paper Napkin Wisdom. Let's listen in. Derek Coburn, welcome to Paper Napkin Wisdom. I'm excited to have you here.
What's up, Gov? How you doing, bud?
Really, really good. Great to see you. So it was really fun. You're one of the very few Paper Napkin Wisdom contributors who've actually keynoted in town here in Ottawa. And we got to have FaceTime in DC once and also over here, which is absolutely fantastic. So it's nice to see you. It's also really great that you're a big hockey fan and your team continues to kick butt in the playoffs, hopefully have a very, very deep run. So congratulations on all that. It's great to see you.
Thanks, man. We'll see. Yeah, Caps had a big surprising year this year. We weren't expecting them to be the one seed in the conference, but here we are.
Here we are. That's why they play the games, right?
Yes, sir.
So I love what you're doing. And for those of you who don't know, Derek is a very accomplished author, and he's got a new book coming out. And your napkin is the title of your new book, which is Let's Retire Retirement. Why did you share that with me?
Look, so Let's Retire Retirement. And the subtitle, by the way, is How to Enjoy Life to the Fullest Now and Later. Look, why I share with you specifically, I would say you have kids who are in your house around you right now, and that may not continue for a whole lot longer. And I have a 15-year-old and a 12-year-old. And so I've got about 3.5 and 5.5 years respectively left with each of them before they potentially go off to college as well. And I think one of the many, many reasons why I feel like retirement is a bad idea, this idea of I need to do something that I don't fully enjoy, and I need to make sacrifices along the way so I can save up enough money by a certain age so I can stop doing this thing to have the right to sit around and do nothing for 30 years after that it's just a really bad idea. And we're seeing more and more people that get there, that come close to hitting their number and being able to retire, and they're going back to work because it's not fulfilling. They don't like sitting around doing nothing at all. But in the short term, I feel like the cost is we get focused when we meet with our financial advisor, when we do an online calculator and we see that we're behind or we see that we really need to save more money. that comes at the expense of the time with our kids, the time with our significant others, the time with our friends, the time that we could spend taking care of ourselves. And I think that for me, and I don't know if you feel the same way, but for me, I've got a really nice rhythm to my work, to the way I spend my time professionally right now. And I'm not looking to get a lot busier in the short term. I'm looking to continue to lean in and spend significant amounts of time with my boys before they fly the coop. And I say that this is sponsored by, if you think in terms of a sponsorship for an event, this ability to really lean in and spend a lot of time with them is sponsored by the knowing that when my youngest is gone, sign me up for 50-hour weeks again, sign me up for more speaking gigs, sign me up to make more happen. And that money coming in then is going to almost pay for the time that I'm spending with them right now.
There's so much in what you just said that's so powerful, Derek, and I want to unpack a little bit about it. Number one is there's a fuse to it, right? You're sort of like lighting a fuse to the time that we spend with our kids right now, saying there's X amount of time before they go off, and there's really, like somebody the other day said something like 80% of the time we have with our kids happens before they're 18 years old.
93%. 93%.
That's insane.
Yeah.
93% of the time that we have with our kids is before they're 18 years old. And everything else after that is downhill. So we've got to maximize it now. So what you're almost doing, what a lot of us do, I think, is we punt, we mortgage, we finance the time that we have now for some future time that doesn't come for most of us, right? So it's based on this false notion. Isn't that part of what you're saying?
Yeah, I mean, society has basically told us that we should be prioritizing our working and our earning years at the same time when our kids probably want us around the most, and when we would most enjoy spending time with them. Our kids would much rather hang out with us when they're 15 than when they're 45. And it's not to say that won't happen either. And I really do think that while there are a lot of people that need to hear this message about you've spent 93% of the time that you're going to spend with your kids by the time they leave and go off to college, the more that we do that, though, the more time we're going to have later on, right? Like the more time that I'm spending with my kids, the more time that we have, that we're developing shared interests and we're going to hockey games together, we're going to concerts together, we have things to talk about. One begets the other. We're more likely to have a closer relationship and have more than 7% more with them by the time they leave than if we're not investing in them right now.
Yeah. And the other part that I think is so let's make sure that point lands. The point that you're making is if we spend the time now before they fly the coop effectively, they're more likely to want to come back and spend time with us later, right? That's what you're saying.
I would think so. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think that's logical.
Yeah. My North Star, if I were to have I've got some personal values, but at the top of that list for me, the way that I make decisions on a daily basis, will this increase or decrease the likelihood that my kids will want to spend more time with me when they're adults? I run most of what I do through that filter, and it's important to me. And like I adopted a mantra from my pastor, which is I want to be more famous in my own home than I am anywhere else. And in order for that to happen, you have to be home a lot. You can't be traveling as much. You can't be, like traveling around the world. You can't be working 70 hours a week. In my experience, at least for me, I spend a lot of time with my kids. I'll share a quick example, if I may, from the book where I talk about this bedtime routine I had with my boys when they were probably 10 and 7. And my 10-year-old, I knew we were getting close to probably him not wanting to do this anymore. But my wife and I would alternate each night. We would lay in bed with them for 10 minutes and wait for them to fall asleep. And I found myself talking to myself most nights thinking, gosh, would you hurry up and go to bed so I can go have this glass of wine, finish this show, hang out with my wife. And I'm like, he's not going to want to do this anymore. And I tried to force myself to be more present, and that worked a little bit. And then I had this thought one day, and this thought was, what if I'm 65 years old and I find out about a company that invented a time machine that allows me to travel back in time and have one experience like this with the 10-year-old version of my kid? How much would I pay for that? And look, the answer is it's quite a bit, but I to quantify it, I called it a a $50,000 experience. And I'm like, without a doubt, man, I imagine the 65-year-old version of me would stroke a $50,000 check in a heartbeat to have one night snuggling, reading a bedtime story, what have you, with the 11-year-old version of my kid who's probably going to be 40 at that time. So I need to start treating these experiences like they're $50,000 experiences. And even though that time has come and gone, there's a lot of other moments like that I'm viewing through this lens of like the time machine effect and treating them like the way that they deserve to be treated.
Yeah. The first thing that flashed back to me when you said that was all three of our kids used to get this "I love you" song. And it was me every night. I'd list down every single person that loves them. I'd say, "Mommy loves you, Daddy loves you," the family loves you, the dogs love you, the grandparents love you. It was this thing. And it was just me saying everybody's name.
Yep.
And the kids always called it the "I love you" song. And they would later on in life, they went to other people and say, "Oh, did you guys get the "I love you" lullaby?" My daughter once said it. And they were like, "What are you talking about?" And my daughter remembered it. And they said, "No, that's not a song. It's not a real thing." And they were like, "What? What are you talking about?" All of us got it all the time, every night.
Yeah.
And I would love for my kids to want that again while I kneel beside the bed and I do that with them. I'm getting teary just thinking about it. Right?
Yeah, man.
So
we're gonna miss them when they're gone, man. And I know and I believe that the next phase will be different and better and different, and we'll enjoy that too. And we're gonna really miss having them in the house when they're gone.
Yeah. The other thing that's part of what you said is, so part of it is the kids, but the other part of it is this boredom, this like people delaying gratification to this point of time, this retirement point of time where my life is going to be good. But that often ends up being highly disappointing for a lot of people, doesn't it?
Yeah, there's this big unretirement movement where over 25% of all people who have quote unquote retired are looking to come back to work and are going back to work. And some of them are doing it for the money, but a lot of them are doing it because they miss the connection. They miss the interaction with other humans. They miss being able to contribute. I talk a little bit about the difference between chasing happiness and chasing meaning. And look, if somebody hates what they do for a living, I don't want them to do it any longer. And I certainly don't expect them to hear what I'm saying and think like, yeah, great idea, Derek. Like you want me to do this even longer than I have to do it. And I'm sure sitting on a beach with a fruity alcoholic beverage is going to be better than doing a job that you don't hate, but I don't think it's going to last very long. And I don't think it's going to be a lasting happiness, if you will. There was a study done, Barbara Fredrickson, I think, is the researcher, and she divided up people into half. Half the people were focused on prioritizing happiness. What will make me happy? The other half were focused on prioritizing meaning what can I contribute to the world at large? And she hooked them up to brain monitors, heart monitors, and people that were prioritizing happiness were not doing very well at all. Their bodies had a response that was very similar to the type of response our bodies have when it's dealing with a chronic adversity, like the loss of a loved one, the loss of a job. Inflammation markers went through the roof. Your immunity went down. People that were prioritizing happiness were much more likely to get sick and to get diseases than people who were prioritizing meaning. So in a roundabout, ironic sort of way, the key to being happy is to really not chase happiness. It's to think about, what can I do to contribute to the world at large? What can I do to show up and share my gifts and my talents and my skills with the world? And that's going to eventually make me happier than I would be if I was just prioritizing happiness.
And you're not saying that there's a one size fits all version of that either, Derek, right? Like what gives me meaning might be different than what gives you meaning that gives somebody else meaning. You're not judging what people pick to give meaning to, but that's the part of it. And I really think it's a bit of a failure of the hedgehog principle, right? Because they said purpose, financial, the financial vehicle or the money machine, and happiness. And it's that intersection that makes it. Happiness is not part of that equation. It's purpose and having an economic engine behind it is useful. And if people are really, really good at highly skilled at something and are getting well compensated for it, they're usually pretty happy, right? Like they're usually pretty content because you go all day being told you're good at something and getting paid well enough for it. You're going to be happy. So happiness is not something that is anything other than the outcome of doing other things that give you meaning, right? So
yeah, you probably have seen like some of the data research on flow states by Mikhail Csikszentmihalyi, and he basically was able to prove that like people are their happiest when they're lost in time. They're engaged in work that they enjoy doing, that's challenging, that's going to contribute to something bigger than themselves, and that really is the pinnacle for being and feeling happy.
So how does this apply? How does this model, how does this let's retire retirement work for someone who's in their 40s or 50s? There are entrepreneurs listening to this right now, Derek, and they're like, oh shit, like I've got 2 kids in college.
Yep.
I'm dealing with 7%.
Yep.
So what do you say to them?
And when you say that, what do you mean? They feel like it's not attainable? They feel like it is?
No, they feel like they've missed the boat.
I see what you're saying. In terms of the way that it applies to their kids
or themselves in any way.
Yeah. So look, we've got health, we've got relationships, we've got friendships, we've got, the last chapter of my book, I call it Investing in You. And I talk about all of the things that I think we should be investing in, knowing that we're going to work a little bit longer. And one of them is like, I think we're in a fun recession right now. I think that like 99% of adults are not even coming close to having an appropriate amount of fun, like just going out and enjoying life more. I would say that I wrote this book more for people like in their 40s and 50s and maybe 30s, more so than the people that have already arrived, if you will, because I want to inspire them to make different choices and live their lives a little bit differently. But what I'm showing people is that by working longer, by planning to extend the time that you're working, it might not be what you're doing now. You might not be working 60 hours a week. You might be doing something else that you enjoy a little bit more on your terms, the way you want to do it. It's bringing in some money, but that little bit of money that you're going to bring in now beyond what you were thinking you were going to bring in means you don't have to save as much for retirement. That means you now have more time and more money that you get to spend on different things right now. So you can justify more easily, flying to see your kid at college, taking your wife on more dates, hitting the gym, not skipping family dinners, going to a great concert, fill in the blank with the rest of it. But that's what I really want people to realize is when they're focused on saving a number for a certain age, they're not properly accounting for the work that they're likely going to want to do beyond the age that everyone's telling them they're going to want to stop.
Yeah, it's what you just said reminds me of a friend of mine who owns a really great chain of restaurants, and he used to be a sommelier in New York, and comes at wine really naturally, and I like good wine. So I remember asking him, I said, I've got some good old bottles of wine. When do I know is the right time to drink it? And he goes, now. Now's always the right time. Like when you think of it, that's the right time. And his point was, it's not generating anything for you. It's not generating what you think it means to you. And there are professional collectors that are doing great things, and that's different. But if you're at home and you've bought something, enjoy it, because how you enjoy it is more important than just keeping it on the shelf. And you're sort of saying the same thing, right? Take it off the shelf. Enjoy it, have the fun, have the moment, share the moment, and then get another one later.
Yep. I love that, man. Yep. Big time.
So tell me, is this something that you had to learn for yourself? 'Cause you're a pretty balanced guy. Like you've always, to me, at least from what I've seen, you've been a very balanced person in terms of managing the amount of time you put in work versus in family. Or is this something that you had to learn the hard way?
So I don't know if you know this about me, but I've been a financial advisor for 27 years. I sold my wealth management firm in 2019, had to a private equity company, had a bit of an earnout. I still have the practice, but it's just a handful of clients that I've been working with for a long time that I continue to enjoy working with. When I realized that the best thing that I had done collectively for the majority of my clients was help them come to the realization that they weren't going to be happy sitting around doing nothing. Anyone that's listening to this, if they've ever met with a financial advisor, I'm going to bet good money that the financial advisor never said, "Do you want to retire?" The financial advisor said, "What age do you want to retire?" You were automatically opted into it. You had to come up with a number. If you didn't have a number off the top of your head, we'll all forgive you for that. But they were probably quick to say, "Why don't you just pick 65? Because that's the age that everyone else picks, or maybe 67, or maybe 62. And then you just go into this autopilot mode of, "Oh my gosh, I'm behind the curve and I need to figure out a way to come up with."
Whether you're into comedians roasting each other's life choices or turning yesterday's bad decisions into today's funny stories, Amazon Music's got the most ad-free top podcasts, included with Prime. Download the Amazon Music app and get in on the joke. Or go to amazon.com/ad-free comedy. That's amazon.com/ad-free comedy to catch up on the latest episodes without the ads.
Saving this money and I don't know what I'm going to do. I share a story in my book about a fictitious guy named Tony. Tony's 45 years old. I'll share it quickly with you, minus all the dramatic flair. Tony's 45 years old. He makes $150,000 a year, and he has $150,000 saved up for retirement. Now, you can add a zero to that. You can make it whatever number you want. The percentages in what I'm about to share will basically be the same. So if Tony wants to stop working at 65 in 20 years, most of the financial advisors, the models, the things that you do, the calculators that you use online, tell him that he needs to save $2,400 a month in order to make it happen. $2,400 a month when you're making $150,000 a year is almost 20% of what you're making and is more or less a non-starter for most people. That would mean that you're essentially living on just a little bit more than what you're saving. If Tony decides he's going to work until he's 75 instead of 65, the amount that he has to save goes from $2,400 down to $110 per month. It goes down by 96%. So you can just feel the sigh of relief that a lot of people feel and experience when I explain this to them, because we've all read and we've all seen these articles that say, well, you should have saved a lot more when you were 23 to take advantage of compounding interest. And we feel stupid because we didn't do that. Not that we were making a lot of money then anyways. But there's not a lot of articles that talk about the same benefits, but even more dramatically affecting you because it's such a higher number that you can achieve by just extending it on the back end a little bit. And so, look, that's maybe an extreme example for some people going from 65 to 75. But if Tony were to say, I'll work until I'm 70, the number goes from $2,400 down to $600 a month. So it's a 75% reduction. So I've been having these conversations with my clients for 25 years in an industry where no one else is having them. No one else really seems to be interested in having them. And I think while I don't think that there's a big conspiracy, I don't think that there is a room in the sky with a bunch of evil people that have gathered together to try to make people miserable. The one thing to keep in mind is that it really goes against the financial interests of a financial advisor to have this conversation. Because if you think about it, if a financial advisor has 300 Tonys that they're working with, and they have this conversation and all 300 Tonys say, okay, this makes sense, I don't want to do this anymore, the financial advisor just took a 95% pay cut because now they're saving a lot less money on an annual basis compared to what they would have been saving if they had bought into this traditional retirement.
Yeah. So do you know, I'm rethinking what I thought the best sales pitch ever was.
Okay.
So do you know what this the best advertising campaign ever in the history of the world has been documented as being De Beers.
Oh, okay, cool.
So De Beers, the diamond company.
You know what I've heard, I believe you. And I've also heard people say that it's the home ownership and the American dream of owning your own house has been dubbed as that too. But tell your De Beers story.
So the De Beers story was prior to the De Beers campaign, the average price in a diamond engagement ring was $1,000. Now, inflation adjusted, $1,000, right? They came up with the 3-month salary guideline. And the 3-month salary guideline was you take your salary times 3, that becomes, so that changed the expectations. They told everybody, nobody talked about how much How much should you spend on a diamond engagement ring? Nobody knew. So they went out and told everybody. This is what you could expect. 3 months, and the average price of the engagement ring went up by more than 10x immediately following that campaign, and has stayed at that level or higher, inflation adjusted, since. Most successful single advertising campaign ever in the history. Now, you're making me rethink that, because this is really an advertising campaign, isn't it? It's an advertising campaign around, when do you want to retire? Great. Well, let's do the math. Let's reverse engineer when you want to retire, what income you want to have, and blah, 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 blah. Presuming, by the way, that you're going to do nothing and earn nothing, right? They're filling in the blanks for you.
Yep.
All of those things. So this is a sales pitch, and you don't have to buy that sales pitch, is really what you're saying.
Well, they're letting you fill in the blanks, but nobody's qualified to predict what inflation is going to be every year for the next 25 years, what tax rates are going to be for the next 25 years, what your rate of return is going to be on an annual basis,
Right.
whether your kids are going to get married and whether you're going to fund their wedding. And oh, by the way, what age are you going to die? You have to predict all of these things perfectly. It's almost like an 8-leg parlay that you have to nail in order to properly, identify the amount that you have to save for retirement. And no one's qualified to do that, but we're living our lives like we're going to win this 8-leg parlay, and we're making all these sacrifices along the way in order to make it happen. And I mean, like, even if you get everything right, I'll just share like the preposterous the preposterous nature of this game, right? Is, let's say that you get it right up until the time you're 64 years old, and you just are 1 year and 7% return away in the stock market from you being able to hit your number and retire. And that's the year the stock market goes down 20%. Then what do you do? Now do you work an extra 6 years or 7 years? And I think, along those lines, I've got clients that have most of them have a lot of money, and a lot of them are still doing some type of work, and they're not making a ton, but they're doing some type of work. And I've got some clients that aren't doing any work at all. And the one, even though either one of them in either category could spend as much money as they wanted to and really never have to worry about running out of money, the people that are still earning an income spend their money in so much more of a carefree way, just knowing that they still have money coming in and they're not in the mode of, oh, now it's only coming out. So they're enjoying their money a lot more by extending the time that they're working as well. It's a big psychological factor for many people.
Yeah. I don't know about you, but I've always had the feeling, I mean, I love what I do. I love what I've done. I love the people that I've interacted with. And I've never imagined myself walking in circles around my neighborhood forever, or sleeping until noon every single day. Like I like that idea of not doing anything scares me. Like I'm so disinterested in it that I find it terrifying.
Yep.
Is that similar to you?
I think so, but I think that you could move from terrified of not doing anything to, like, I see the way that you show up, and I see the way that you run this show and run businesses, and I think you do it mostly from a place of, enjoyment. Like, you like doing it, you love the game, you love the value that you're adding. I think you would be okay, and I think it makes sense for a lot of people. Look, I hit pause on my life after I sold my practice. Again, in part knowing that I was never going to stop working, that I didn't have this number that I had to hit. And I got to focus on some childhood trauma. I got to focus on some things that were running in the background for me. And maybe for a lot of people, it's this fear of not doing anything or not contributing. Maybe that's part of it. But ultimately, I just think that people are just not going to be happy or fulfilled sitting around doing nothing for an extended period of time.
Yeah. And then you add on top of it that we're all, just health science is what it is. We're going to live longer in the future than we think we're going to live. Right? We're going to, and that's another part of it, right? Do we want to be doing something we love right until the end? I watch my parents. My parents are so living a life of meaning. They are really active in a variety of community groups, and yoga groups and spiritual groups around the Hindu Federation here in Canada and other things. They're just so active and they're so happy being
Yeah.
active that they see no other way for them other than to continue to do those things. I mean, in fact, they're busier than they've ever been. And I love
That's
that.
great.
I love
Yeah.
watching that. So that fun recession, look, I'm all about giving people a place to start. And yeah, your book is a great place to start. But what would you say for the person listening who's running a business, who's doing the 60-hour weeks, who's trading time right now? What would you say to them? Where do they start?
To have more fun?
Yeah.
Look, so I think I would approach them the same way that I would approach somebody that hasn't worked out in 5 years. I don't think that a good way to kick off your lack of having fun for an extended period of time is to go on an extravagant trip with, lots of energy and lots of stimulation. Like I would tell the person that hasn't worked out in a long time to let's plan to go to the gym once or twice a week for a few weeks and shake off the cobwebs and start eating a little bit better. And I would tell the person that tells me that the last time they had fun was 3 months ago when they went out with another couple and they had a bottle of wine and they talked about their kids and it was an hour and a half and then they went home. I would tell them, look, maybe we find a local concert to go to. Maybe you find a stand-up comedian to visit, to go see. There's a term called collective effervescence that was invented about 100 years ago. And it essentially says that the way that you can achieve the most joy while we are in these human suits is to experience this collective effervescence, which is a combination of being in a flow state with a lot of other people who are experiencing the same thing that you are experiencing, right? So for me, live music, concerts, and stand-up comedy are the best ways that we can access fun. Some people say sports. I think sports are great. I love sports. You love sports. The reason I would put sports in a different category is, look, man, there's a 50% chance that you're going to be unhappy at the end of a sports game, right? Like I'm never going to be unhappy. I go to see a band that I love. It's not like the guitar player is going to, go 0 for 9 from the 3-point line and I'm going to leave, because they stopped their set an hour early. That's not happening. But that's when the good moments of sports happen. That's why they're so good, because everyone's feeling it all at once. So look, there's a great app called Bands in Town that you can sync up with your Spotify account. It'll take a look at all the artists that you listen to and make recommendations for other bands that are coming into town that you might like. Hopefully there's some kind of place to see stand-up comedy where you are. But if those are not an option, then look, even just reconnecting with an old friend or groups of friends or people that you can go out and spend a little bit of time with. I really do believe that when we're doing all this work, we're working on our business and working on ourselves, and everyone's talking about the work that we're doing. It wouldn't surprise me if our bodies, our mind, our spirits were just like, you know what? Like, you are never showing us a good time. So why are we going to fall in line and conform and do all this work stuff that you want to do all the time?
Yeah, I love that. And I love the idea of starting small. And I love that you gave people this really easy way of reconnecting with what they find fun. Derek, there's a member of the Paper Napkin Wisdom community who passed away suddenly earlier this year. His name's John Rulin. Yeah. You were close to him. John gave us a great napkin, and we've been asking people to pay forward his legacy, his memory, and his inspiration by ending with gratitude. His napkin to us was what appreciate appreciates. What you appreciate appreciates. So who or what would you like to appreciate today?
Yeah, I'm really glad that you're doing this. John was such a great soul who left us way too soon. I was at his funeral, and I replay a lot of the video messages that he's sent me and go back and visit those. And I, was gifted by him like a lot of knives. We used him and his company, Giftology, to provide gifts, and we still do. We still use them for a lot of our clients and a lot of our friends. And so I've been doing a lot more cooking lately, and I think about John almost every day when I'm in the kitchen, preparing food. So it's really cool that you're doing this. Look, I just want to give a shout out to my wife, Melanie. You know, we have this incredible relationship, this incredible marriage. And in particular, you and I were talking about this before we started chatting, but she was able to, she worked for the Redskins, now Commanders, for a long time, and left when her and I started our community Cadre together. And she was able to spend a good part of the COVID lockdown, standing up for a lot of the women that experienced sexual abuse and trauma and harassment, at the hands of the leadership and the ownership of that team. And she, everywhere from testifying in front of Congress to being on the Today Show and other news outlets and writing op-eds for big publications. And she just really poured a lot into it. And she gave our boys a front row seat of what it looks like to stand up, for the little guy. And her and a few other women, man, they took down a billionaire. I was just really proud of her and her willingness to sacrifice her own comfort and her own needs for the betterment of the world and so many other women who are living in unfortunate and working in unfortunate situations. So yeah, she's my number one hero of many, and love giving her a shout out and praise whenever I can.
Yeah. Well, we did talk about it beforehand because it was amazing to me to not only see her become such a champion for so many women without a voice, but I loved watching you support her too. So it was it was a beautiful thing. Derek, it's always special to spend time with you. Thank you.
Likewise, man. I miss you, man. Hopefully we can do the in-person thing again sometime soon.
Yeah, I look forward to it.
Thanks for having me, man.
Thank you. What a powerful conversation with Derek Coburn. Derek reminded us that sometimes the biggest transformations start by questioning what we've always assumed to be true. His perspective isn't just about finances or retirement. It's about life design. It's about asking, am I living now or waiting to live later? Let's recap a few of the takeaways from this episode. Retirement might be outdated, but life design isn't. Micro retirements can give us the clarity we need today. You can enjoy the now and build for the future. It's not either or. Contribution keeps us vital long after we retire. Relationships are the real ROI of a life well lived. So, what would happen if you stopped deferring the good stuff? What could you reclaim this week, this month, if you stopped waiting and started designing? Derek's wisdom offers a mirror. What we do with that reflection is up to us. If this episode sparked something in you, don't keep it to yourself. Subscribe, leave a review, and most importantly, share this conversation with someone who's chasing a future without enjoying the present. And here's your challenge. Jot down your biggest insight from this episode on a paper napkin. Take a picture, share it, tag it with hashtag Paper Napkin Wisdom. Ask yourself, what if I designed my life instead of deferring it? Until next time, remember, it's not about waiting for the perfect moment. It's about making the moment you're in matter. And make it a great day.
If you love chilling mysteries, unsolved cases, and a touch of mom-style humor, Moms and Mysteries is the podcast you've been searching for. Hey guys, I'm Mandy.
And I'm Melissa. Join us every Tuesday for Moms and Mysteries, your gateway to gripping, well-researched true crime stories. Each week, we deep dive into a variety of mind-boggling cases as we shed light on everything from heists to whodunits. We're your go-to podcast for mysteries with a motherly touch. Subscribe now to Moms and Mysteries wherever you get your podcasts.